Hi, it's Wednesday the 11th of May 2022. I'm in Bideford and I'm continuing my walk from Land's End to John O'Groats. Just by the river in Bideford is this statue of Tarka the otter, because of course this area, this is the country of two rivers which is mentioned in the book, and the two rivers are the River Torridge, which flows through Bideford, and the River Tor, which flows through Barnstaple. So Henry Williamson, he wrote the book, he published it in 1927, and it's been a very popular book. And the location of it is the North Devon area between North Dartmoor and the sea. So I think this is my route to Barnstaple this morning. There is a long distance walking path in North Devon that's called the Tarka Trail. I'm on it at the moment. It's quite long. I think it's about 180 miles long altogether, and it's a kind of a big figure of 8 with Barnstaple in the middle, and it goes as far as Linton in the north and then down to Oakhampton in the south. So I'll be following the Tarka Trail into Barnstaple. And then my plan for the next few days, I mentioned earlier that I'm planning to walk from Barnstaple to Bridgwater, and I was looking at the map in the hotel, and it looked the direct route looks a bit boring. It's just country lanes, so I thought, well, I don't fancy doing that. And then I noticed a very nice route if I cross Exmoor and walk towards Minehead. And then from Minehead I can cross the Quantock Hills over to Bridgwater, and I thought, well, that's a much more pleasant route going, because I'll be crossing the centre of Exmoor. So I'm spending the next 3 days just walking to Minehead, and then from Minehead I'll be carrying on to Bridgwater, and then at Bridgwater I hope to carry on to Glastonbury, and then onwards to Wells, and then to Bristol. And then from Bristol I'll be going to Chepstow, where I will be following the Wye Valley Trail to Hereford. Just on the other side of the estuary, that's Appledore, and it's a pity it's quite overcast this morning, because I've been here before when it's sunny, and Appledore does look quite picturesque from this side of the estuary. I think it's clearing up this afternoon though, which should be quite nice. I've just arrived in Barnstaple, so I'm just going to have a little lunch break here and then carry on to my campsite, which is about a couple of miles just on the other side of Barnstaple. Just arrived at Brightleacott Barton campsite, so this is where I'll be spending the night before heading to Exmoor tomorrow morning. Just settled down at the campsite. I think if you camp at the top there's quite a nice view, but where I am it's just out the wind. It's a bit windy at the moment, but this is a nice quiet campsite. It's quite close to Barnstaple, and of course it's quite close to Exmoor. So now I'm just going to settle down and listen to the radio until tomorrow morning. So good night. Thursday the 12th of May. So this morning I'm walking up to a small hamlet called Chalacombe, and then I'll be going onto the moors all the way to Minehead. I've just arrived in Bratton Fleming. There's a very handy village stores here, and you can get a cup of coffee as well. So I'm going to stock up with food and drink here because I'll be wild camping again tonight. I'm just approaching Exmoor now. I'm just heading for a place called Chalacombe. I think it's just 2 or 3 farm buildings. And then at Chalacombe I'll be looking for the Tarka Trail again. I'll be following the Tarka Trail northwards. It goes to Linton, and then at some point there's another long distance trail called the Macmillan Way West, and that's linked up to the Tarka Trail, so I'll be going along that, and that goes to Minehead. I've just arrived back on the Tarka Trail, so now I'm going to follow that across the moors until I get to a place called Exe Head. That's the source of the River Exe, and that's where the link to the Macmillan Way West will be. I think I've just arrived in Somerset now. This small lake is called Pinkery Pond. I think I'm about a mile or so from Exe Head now. I've just arrived at Exe Head. It's just this little spring here on the moors, but this is the source of the River Exe, which will now flow down to Exeter and then on to Exmouth. I'm about halfway on my walk from Barnstaple to Minehead now, so I think I've only got about 16 miles to Minehead, so I can start taking it easy now and maybe start looking for somewhere to camp later on. This is the Exe Valley. It's quite scenic up here. I couldn't really find anywhere to camp on Exmoor, but I've noticed a couple of miles off route there's a campsite. It's called Westermill Farm Campsite. I think Westermill Farm is just down there. It's near the river. So I rang the owner and he said, yeah, we're open, you're quite welcome to stay. So I'm just popping down there now. Wow, there's some absolutely gorgeous views here. That's the hill I've got to climb tomorrow morning, but I'm very close to I'm not far from Minehead. Now I'm only about 12 miles or so very easy walk tomorrow. I've just arrived at Westermill Farm campsite, and yet again I'm the only person here, so this is definitely the quiet season. It's quite a nice place, it's very secluded. It's £12.50 for one person and a tent. Unfortunately there's no radio reception, and there's no mobile phone reception as well, so I can't listen to my radio. They do have free Wi-Fi back at the farmhouse, but I'm too far away to get that, so I'm just going to go to bed now and plan my walk for Minehead tomorrow. So until then, good night. Friday 13th of May. Today I'm going back onto the moors and I'm following the Macmillan Way west into Minehead. I'm back on the Macmillan Way west heading towards Minehead. I googled the other night why it's called the Macmillan Way, and it's named after the Macmillan Trust, which is the charity which helps people with cancer. And all it said on the website is that the Macmillan Way footpaths are they've been organised to help raise funds. So I just assume people must do charity walks along the Macmillan Ways. There are several of them that stretch across the country, and this is the Macmillan Way West, and it's 102 miles long, and it goes from Barnstaple to Castle Carey. Some Exmoor ponies. Just arrived at Dunkery Hill. This is the highest point in Somerset. It's 520 metres above sea level, and I read that on a sunny day you can actually see Wales from here. It's really nice views up here. So now it's just a 7-mile walk down into Minehead. I'm about 2 miles away now from Minehead. There is this really big hill before you get to Minehead, but the views up here are really great. And on the other side I hope to get some really good views of the sea as I'm going down to Minehead. I've just arrived at Premier Inn in Minehead, so this is where I'll be spending the night. And then tomorrow morning I'll be going down to the seafront to walk along the coastal path to Dunster. So until then, good night. Saturday the 14th of May. I got my towns mixed up last night. It's actually Watchet I'm walking to today, not to Dunster. So I'm now looking for the coastal path that goes from Minehead to Watchet, and then the plan for today, I'm just going to walk along the coast as far as Watchet and then go inland to Nether Stowey, where I'll be camping tonight, and then tomorrow I'll be walking through country lanes to Bridgwater. I've just arrived in the village of Blue Anchor, so I'm going to look for a cafe now because I Could do with a nice cup of coffee before carrying on. A nice cup of tea at the Driftwood Cafe in Blue Anchor. Another big, lovely beach. I think I have to walk up that big hill before I get to Watchet. So unfortunately the footpath between Blue Anchor and Watchet has been closed due to cliff erosion. So there is a diversion, so I'm about half hour from Watchet now, so soon be there. I've just arrived at Watchet Harbour, so now I'm going to have a little break and then continue with part 2 of today's walk when I go up into the Quantock Hills. I'm climbing up into the Quantock Hills now. I've just come up this really big hill, but the views up here are well worth it. It's absolutely gorgeous up here. You can see for miles. And I think I'm getting quite close to Nether Stowey now. I must be about 5 miles now. So I guess I can start taking it easy. There's not many people up here, which is surprising because it's a Saturday, it's gorgeous weather. I've seen a few joggers doing a marathon further down before I came up here, and there's a few off-road cyclists, but apart from that it's very, very quiet up here. I'm just approaching Bicknoller Post now. This is the Bicknoller Post, and just quoting from online, it stands at 290 metres above sea level, and Bicknoller Post is a marker for this hill summit, one of many in the Quantock Hill area of outstanding natural beauty. It gets its name from the village of Bicknoller to the west edge of the Quantocks. Up on the top here you can get to experience some incredible views over the moorland, woodland and towards the coastline. So time to continue to Nether Stowey. I've just found a really nice place to do a spot of wild camping, so I'm going to camp up here tonight and then go into Nether Stowey tomorrow morning to get some food and then carry on into Bridgwater. I think it's going to be quite a wet night tonight. The forecast is there's a lot of cloud and heavy rain coming in now, but tomorrow it's just a short walk. I think it's about 13 miles to Bridgwater, so not too bad. So until tomorrow, good night. Sunday the 15th of May. Today I'm coming off the Quantock Hills and I'll be spending the day just going through country lanes towards Bridgwater. I'm heading towards the Somerset levels now, which is quite nice because it's the countryside's getting a lot flatter now, so it's much more easier to walk. So it does make a change from the southwest peninsula. It's very hilly, so it's very hard work. It is very picturesque, but it is nice for a change to be making some distance along this flat region. I know around Bridgwater it's a very flat region. I've just arrived in Bridgwater, so now I have to look for my hotel and plan my walk for tomorrow. So until then, good night. Monday the 16th of May. Today I'm just walking to a campsite just outside the town of Street. I would like to make a little detour to a town called Westermill, because that was the scene of the last battle fought on English soil, the Battle of Sedgemoor in 1685. So in 1685, James II was the King of England. But a lot of people in England were unhappy about that because James II, he was a Catholic, and that was a time when there was a lot of religious wars going on. And also, as a Catholic, he had strong sympathy with France, which at the time was a big enemy of England. So a lot of people in England at the time wanted him to be replaced. So the Duke of Monmouth, he was called James Scott, and he decided to organise a rebellion. Now, the Duke of Monmouth, he was the son of Charles II, so that made him the nephew of James II. So he thought he had a right to the throne as well. And at the time, he was living in Holland. So he sailed to Lyme Regis on the south coast, and from there he started to raise a rebel army, with which he hoped he could march to London and depose James II and become king. So after arriving in Lyme Regis, he started to attract a lot of supporters, and he started marching through East Devon and then to Taunton, where he was proclaimed king, which was a big offence then. That spelled big trouble as far as James II was concerned. And then from there he marched on to Bridgwater, and by this time he had raised an army of about 3,500 soldiers and cavalrymen. So after Bridgwater, the rebel army started marching to Bristol, where they thought they could get more supporters to join the army. Unfortunately, the weather got really bad. There was torrential rain, and they were forced to return to Bridgwater. Now, by this time, King James, he had assembled an army of 3,000 soldiers and cavalrymen, and they started marching to Bridgwater. And before they got to Bridgwater, they made a base camp at Westermill. Now, the messengers of the Duke of Monmouth, they told him that the Royal Army had now been based at Westermill. So he decided to make a nighttime attack. So on the night of 6th of July, he got the rebel army together, and they started marching towards Westermill during the night, following one of the drainage channels towards the town. But then, in a catastrophic moment for the Duke of Monmouth, a gunshot suddenly rang out as they were approaching Westermill. And no one knows who may have fired the shot. It may have been a traitor in the ranks, or it was most probably a patrol of the Royal Army who had seen the rebel army approaching, and so they fired a warning shot. So the Royal Army, they were alerted to what was happening, and so they prepared for battle. Now, the Duke of Monmouth's battle plan, he had about 600 cavalrymen, and he ordered them to ride around behind the Royal Army and try and attack them from behind. But the big problem for the cavalry, they had to cross a drainage ditch that surrounded Western Zoyland. It was called the Bussex Reen, and a reen is a local dialect word for a drainage channel. So they couldn't find a crossing point, and they ended up having to ride in front of the Royal Army, and the Royal Army started to fire on them, and that made the horses panic, and they started charging back towards the rebel army. So of course all mayhem broke out then, and then the Royal Army, they started to attack the rebel army, and there was a big fight, and the Royal Army won the battle. And the Duke of Monmouth, he fled the battle scene, but he was eventually captured and he was executed. I can just see the church of Western Zoyland just over in the distance. So in this area, this is where the battle would have taken place. This is one of the many drainage channels that goes across the Somerset levels. I'm not sure if this is the Bussex Reen, but it would have been quite similar to this, and that is what the Royal Army would have used as defence if there was a possible attack from the rebel army. So I'm just going to travel over to the village now. This is the battle memorial that was erected just after the battle, and on it it says, "To the glory of God and in memory of all those who, doing the right as they gave it, fell in the Battle of Sedgemoor, 6th of July 1685. I'm crossing the King's Sedgemoor Drain. This is a huge drainage channel. It was dug out in the late 18th century. It flows down to the River Parrett, and it was necessary to build lots of channels like this because the Somerset levels, it's very prone to flooding, and I think at the moment I'm not that high above sea level, so it's necessary to have all these channels. But I'm approaching Street now, so I'm starting to go up into the hills now. I'm about 2 miles now from Street, and this is where I'll be staying tonight. This is Lark's Rise campsite. I've just set up my tent at Lark's Rise campsite, and guess what? I'm the only person here again, although the owner said there's a caravan coming in tonight, and that's it. So another nice quiet night. So tomorrow morning I'll be heading to Street, then I'll be walking to Glastonbury and then to Wells. So until then, good night. Tuesday the 17th of May. Today I'm walking to Glastonbury and then on to Wells. Now, because both towns, they're both very picturesque and there's a lot of historic buildings to see, and I didn't really like the idea of spending the day carrying my rucksack up Glastonbury Tor and around Glastonbury Abbey. I thought the best idea would be to go direct to Wells, where I've booked a hotel for 2 nights, and then tomorrow morning I'm going to come back to Glastonbury on the bus to have a look around, and then go back to Wells to have a look around, and then the next morning I'm going to continue walking to Bristol. I've just arrived in Glastonbury High Street. So this is a very historic town. People have been living here since the Bronze Age, and it used to be the site of one of the most important abbeys in the country, but that's unfortunately in ruins. but I hope to be visiting that tomorrow, as well as Glastonbury Tor. So next stop, Wells. I'm just approaching Wells now. I can see the cathedral in the distance. Actually, at the moment, I'm on a long distance trail called the Monarch's Way, which, as you can see, it goes through this rather large crop field. But this is it's an interesting footpath. It's several hundred miles long, actually, and the story behind it roughly marks the route that King Charles II took after the Battle of Worcester in 1651, because the Royalist army lost that, and that marked the end of the English Civil War. And King Charles had to flee the country or he would get executed. And so he tried leaving Worcester he tried to go up to Scotland, but he was prevented from doing so by the parliamentarian army. So he had to come down to you have to travel south. He went through Bristol and then down to the south coast, and he eventually managed to get on a ship to France. I would like to follow parts of the Monarch's Way up to Bristol. I think there's a nice part from Winford. There's a small village called Winford, and from there you just walk to the Brunel Suspension Bridge. But a lot of these lesser known footpaths, unfortunately, they're quite overgrown these days, so I might spend most of my time trying to wade through 2 foot high stinging nettles and grass. So I'll just have to see how it goes, but it'll be interesting to do that walk to Bristol. So here I am at Wells on this really gorgeous day. I've got a couple of miles walk to do yet, because my hotel is in Wookey Hole, which is just outside Wells. But I've got a couple of nights off now to do a bit of sightseeing. So I'm going to upload this video tonight and then start shooting my 4th video tomorrow. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to upload another video soon. Bye!